Hey everyone, here we are to talk about technical theatre, and this particular little section is on set design. So what is the reason for set design? Why is it that set design is important? And really the primary function of a set is to provide the audience with some context. Now sets could be incredibly abstract and symbolic and give the audience an idea of mood or tone, or create some sort of atmosphere rather than it being strictly realistic, in which this audience are immersed into that environment. And then you can of course have anything in between. You might have half the stage realistic, the other half very abstract. You might have something like Shakespearean, where there was just sort of one object that would represent a huge set. And the set really helps the audience to connect with the action and helps the actors to connect, to tell the story to the audience. So if we have a look at this particular set, I wonder what it is that stands out to you about this. For me, there's looks quite realistic. We can see some interesting textures in there as well with the brick. You can see that it's fairly well detailed, some beautiful lighting as well. So that's a fairly realistic, I think if I went to see that play, I'd be immersed in that world. And as an actor, that would be just marvellous to be able to act within that space. If we compare that to something like this, which leaves it quite open. So some people in the class were wondering whether this might be Titanic or something like that. So you've got that really reflective surface that could represent some water. You've got the light globes that look like stars. You could turn some off at times and leave some on. You've got that staircase in that house that's sort of enveloped in the ground. So very open there, and it's very well coloured. It's very well lit, I think. Now you've got this one, which is incredibly symbolic or abstract. Not quite sure what's happening, but you've got there a blank floor, you've got 4 chairs, you've got those picture frames with wires or whatever they are through there. It'd be interesting to know how that is used. You've got here the archways. It almost gives the feeling of a forest because that archway that you could go in there and get lost. It does give a feeling of contrast with the black and white. You've got the sharp edges, all those sorts of things. Again, this one's fairly realistic. It looks very detailed, nice high ceilings. That would be quite nice to work in, obviously giving the feeling of realism, naturalism, you being immersed in that world. This one's interesting with the shapes that they use, and you shouldn't be restricted by the shapes that you might choose to use as well. It gives some flexibility with that woman looking over towards the middle one and moving between. It might say rotate throughout the play to help change the scene. And you've got this sort of one where it is possibly the big things that are hanging down, possibly that's projected onto them, or possibly it is an image, and you've got the floor with something on it, but lots of different options. So what I want you to do is with this one, have a look at this, and I want you to answer for me, what could this be a set for? It could be very abstract, your answers, or it might be very literal, very realistic, that this is something. Okay, so write that down, and we'll talk about that in the next lesson. So what does the set designer do? Well, they read the play, they hear the director's vision, and then they create a concept that's in line with that. Because if it's not in line with the director's vision, if it's meant to be a children's theatre piece, and they come up with severed heads and lots of dark tones, that it's not going to create that mood that they want. But if that works within the mood, it's all good. They design, plan and organise the build. So depending on how your setup is, they might do the build, or they might organise the build and sort of design how everything should be, the textures, the colours, the material used to build it, and then hand it off. Also designing how it's built, how it's painted, how it's decorated. The look of the stage really is the responsibility of the set designer, and it can be as interesting as your imagination and ingenuity can make it. If we think of the set design as a whole as being the forest, you stand back and you see everything. But then when you actually take that apart, you've got little pieces, the trees that make it up. So in terms of the whole thing, you should be able to step back and look at it and think, fam, okay? Where's the focus? What is the atmosphere doing and what is the mood doing? Does my whole set ring true to those things? Then if we look at individual pieces of set, we might go, okay, drama students like to create silly theatre, where we've got, okay, is this in line with the direction? What are the shapes doing? Do they need to change? The line, is it in line? Do I just need to move it a fraction to give the whole audience sight of it? Or does it look too boring and not deep enough when it's straight? What's the tone, colour? What about the space around it? What about space on it? Do we need to change that? And what's the texture? All things that need to be considered when designing set. So this is a video that's helpful to watch just to see. I'll put the link right here. Okay. Now, homework, find 5 pictures of different set designs and answer those questions. What mood is created? What's the play likely to be about? What are some aspects that stand out? So for this particular image I thought, well, it's very colourful, looks enjoyable. It's not fully realistic. I'm getting sort of a Dr. Seuss feel to it in some ways. I think there could be some unhappy moments. It's primarily a happy play. Could be some not happy moments. And I'm getting that because there's a lot of corners and straight lines. There's lots of windows or frames or whatever they are. I'm sure they're important, but I'm just not sure where yet. And it's very focused on that middle area, those couches, the way that they're positioned. So if actors sit in them, that wouldn't be ideal for the audience to be able to see them. So I'm wondering how they might be used. All right, and we'll continue on with it next lesson.